Hey man, what's up?
All right. Okay. We're not,
Dude,
not
why
under
do you
any
sound
time
so why do you
constraint.
sound so depressed?
What? Because you're really irritating. Okay. Let's back up. Okay. Let's back up. Let's
Cool.
back up all the way to the beginning. Okay.
All the way to the beginnings?
Okay,
But
yeah.
I'm kind of interested in where we left off though. Why can't we go back
Okay.
there?
Let's talk about where we left off. Okay.
Sure.
You
sure.
asked
can
me.
I recap real quick?
You
All right,
asked
sure.
me to speculate on what I thought the possibility was between the collusion of Trump's campaign and any kind of Russian people. Okay.
Can I add that? Just
Sure.
for
Yeah, go
clarity?
ahead. Yep.
I asked you how likely it was that Trump or his campaign, or Trump's campaign, because you said his campaign,
Yep.
colluded with Russia to release the DNC or the Podesta emails.
Yep.
You said it was fairly likely.
I said it.
I
I
asked
said it
you-
seemed fairly likely to me. Yep. And then you asked
Yep.
me to put a
I asked
percentage
you
on it.
How likely percent? Like, what would you estimate the percentage would be? And that's a reasonable question because
Sure.
if you had to bet on it, what would you estimate? And you said fairly likely, and you said 40%.
Okay.
So
yes.
that's where we left off.
That's where we left off. Okay. So to clarify, when I'm talking on stream about these events, and I'm pretty sure you can dig through VODs and find like a million fucking examples of me literally saying, okay, I have no idea what the chances are of this. Not only that, I've also said a million times, like, I don't really care about this that much until the FBI finishes their investigation. Actually, if you ask Mike Spam in chat, it drives him fucking crazy because every time Mike Spam talks to me, I always say the same thing. I say, I have no idea what the scope of the FBI investigation is, if RICO or anything else is involved. I'm really interested to find out what's going to happen when the FBI's investigation finishes. So when you ask me, when you try to nail me down on like a percentage, and I give you like a guess, and then you try to pretend like I sell that guess that I just gave you as 100% fact every day when I talk about this, that's insanely
Okay, wait,
disingenuous.
hey, look, I'm not saying that you say that every day when you talk about it, because I have heard you say those things like, oh, I've heard you try to be cautious and you don't seem as alarmist as other people are. I agree with that.
Okay, so
that's
then why are you pretending?
Let me finish.
Okay.
That's why I can't reconcile how you've been with you saying there's about a 40%. Wait, take plus or minus 10, 15%, whatever. But I can't reconcile you saying, oh, I'm going to wait. I'm going to sit on my hands until I see what's going on. But then you say it's fairly likely. Because let me ask you, would you agree or disagree that if it is true that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia or released emails, it would be the greatest crime possibly in American electoral history?
I would say definitely in American electoral history. Yeah, for
I
sure.
agree.
Yeah.
So for you to say it's fairly likely that the greatest crime in American electoral history happened doesn't jibe with what you've said in the past, which is I'm going to wait and see what's going on. And I think you're more reasonable and you're more reserved. And I see the media and other people have a much more aggressive tone. So I make a comment like the one you were referencing. I'm referencing people like that. And honestly, I think you kind of fall into that for saying the 40%
because
thing,
you're
plus or minus whatever.
The reason why I bring this up is because you made this strange statement that the Russia collusion theory has been utterly blown out of the water. What do you mean by that?
Sure, I'll happily explain what I mean by that. And it kind of goes back to when I asked you how likely do you think the collusion was, and when you're estimating the likelihood that something like this happens, you have to consider the evidence, right? That seems like a very basic statement.
How do I consider the evidence of an ongoing FBI investigation? What's changed?
Wait, what do you mean?
Nothing has changed. Nothing's been blown out of the water. Nothing has been concluded.
Yes, it has. Let me explain then. There was innuendo, and there was not direct evidence, but a lot of people believe that Trump himself was under investigation by the FBI.
Okay, so we're weasel wording now. A lot of people believe. I don't know. Maybe some people did, but that's not what I've read in the news. That's not what's been reported on the news, and that's none of the stories that I'm following have said that Trump has been investigated as a direct member. In fact, when we watched Roger Stone give like his fucking 3 hours of testimony on how the CIA does the unmasking and everything. That was the first time that we had an inkling that Trump might have been investigated as a roundabout thing because he was tangentially related to another investigation. I think it's like when people first started to get the inkling of that. But the narrative has never been Trump is under investigation.
So let me explain. Let me explain then. If Trump were under investigation by the FBI and Comey did confirm it or whatever, that would add a lot of evidence to the theory, which didn't have any evidence before, that Trump colluded with Russia or his campaign colluded with Russia. So the fact that it was verified by James Comey himself, not only verified, but he verified Trump's tweets, where he said 3 times Comey. I thought Trump was bullshitting when he said that. But the fact that Comey verified that, it blew it out of the water because you basically the path by which it would be plausible that Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. Right now,
no. That statement was factually incorrect. What you just said was absolutely incorrect.
Right,
so
great.
you said Trump or his campaign. Do you understand the difference between people in Trump's campaign versus Trump himself? Do you understand the difference between those two parties?
I said or his campaign. I'm
Okay,
including
or so
in the likelihood
Comey
here.
has made no statements about the ongoing investigation into Trump's campaign's associates. Okay, only that Trump himself was not under investigation. Now, to my knowledge, I don't know if you're reading BuzzFeed or Vox or Slater, where you get your news from. I haven't been reading leaks daily that suggest that Trump himself is under investigation. It's always been about people like Flynn or people like Manafort or people like that are associated with Trump. It's never been Trump himself that's under investigation.
Not recently. Like I said, that's been blown out of the water, so you're not seeing those articles anymore. Those articles certainly did exist.
Okay. I guess I missed all of them. I didn't see any of them. I wish I was more informed.
Right.
Where do you see these articles that say Trump is under investigation for Russian collusion? It's always been associates of Trump. That's what we've been dealing with. That's what all the stories have been about. And then sometimes
let's go back to my original comment, because this is basically grounding this all. My allegation is that the collusion thing is a giant conspiracy theory. And I think a lot of people, you included, put too much stock in that conspiracy theory, and I think you're doing it because of media manipulation.
Okay.
And the reason you say, okay, but let me flesh out the reason why.
Yep.
The reason is because you have this belief, this kind of likelihood that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia to release the emails. You say it's 40%. Do you still think it's 40%?
Maybe. I don't know, dude. I wouldn't put money on it. I have no fucking... You're trying to pressure me for something and then like crucify me with it. I don't know the actual percentage. I'm not in the fucking intelligence community. I don't have access to classified material on this investigation. You told me to make a guess. I don't know. 40% seems reasonable given all the circumstantial shit. But I don't know. Are you asking me to like defend that with my fucking life? Like get a sword and hop in the Coliseum? Like no. What the fuck?
Hey, look. I'll say I'm not asking you to defend it with your life, but I am asking you to defend it with a little bit of logic and reason.
Sure, I can defend it with a little bit of logic and reason. Yeah, sure.
Okay, wait. Okay, let's do that. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. So in order to get to a 40%, what you call a posterior probability, it's what you're saying the probability of this event is.
Okay.
If we're using a Bayesian approach, which you're familiar with.
Nope, I have no idea what that means.
Sure. So when you take the Bayesian approach, you basically have two core components you could think of. You have the prior probability, which is the likelihood that this event happened before taking into account any evidence. And then you have essentially the likelihood of that event given the evidence. So if you apply that line of reasoning to this whole entire scandal, you're left with is, well, considering no other evidence, considering just the circumstances, what's the probability that the presidential campaign of Donald Trump colluded with the Russian government? It would have been, like you said, the greatest electoral crime in history. So what's the probability that it happened without looking at anything else? A very, very low prior.
When you say without considering any evidence?
Yep.
Yeah, I would consider it less than probably less than 1,000th of a percent. Very small.
Look, I agree with you. So that's my point, is that when we're talking about Bayesian inference, you have this posterior probability that's 40%, right? So in order to get there, you start with the prior, and then you add evidence. Not add, but you basically add
evidence to augment that possibility.
Right,
okay, sure.
Exactly. So in order to get from like less than 1/10 of a percentage to 40%, you need a shit ton of evidence. Okay. And not just circumstantial evidence and innuendo. You need direct evidence.
So circumstantial isn't good enough. Well, in that case, then it's always going to be less than 1% until I get a job working for the FBI or the CIA. Because I don't have access to that.
But my point, guess where I'm at? I'm at less than 1% too. So maybe we agree. After we sit down and take a Bayesian approach, we're both under 1%. Now, for some reason, people don't seem to put it under 1% because they've been influenced by the media. You start with 40%, and after I take you through the Bayesian approach, now you're with me down to under 1%.
No, what? I didn't say I was with you. I think that's a fucking retarded observation. No, I wouldn't go down to that percentage. No.
You wouldn't adjust downwards from 40% to less than 1%.
No, I would probably sit at around like 30 to 40%. That's like considering all things, that's probably where I would sit.
Okay, then let's go back to we have to take a step backwards then, because how do you get from a prior probability of 1/10 of a percentage point and then you get to 30 to 40% posterior?
Sure.
How do you do that?
Okay,
Where's the evidence that lifts the? I'm asking specifically. What's the evidence that lifts that prior probability to 30 to 40%?
Manafort, in my opinion, is that's like a confirmed fucking Russian dude. I do not like Manafort. I think that he has an incredibly fucking shady past. I think that his dealings in the campaign in fucking Ukraine with Yuklevich or whatever the fuck the guy's name was, reeked of being paid off by fucking Russian people. I think he reported like $70,000 for like 2 years of work for his organization, right? They found the secret ledgers. Apparently they're working on verifying whether those payments were made or not. I don't know where that investigation stands, but Manafort has a really sketchy history dealing with interfering, or with consulting in Ukrainian politics on behalf of Russia. Okay, why the fuck was Manafort the campaign manager for Trump? That's really fucking bizarre. That of all the kinds of people that he could draw, that Manafort would be the one to come out there. Manafort is somebody that I consider to be on his own, without being anything associated with Trump, probably has really shady ties to Russia. Okay, so that's one, right? So that's Manafort on his own. I think that the interjection that Trump's campaign made into the RNC platform was really bizarre. That the only interjection that they had there was that they wanted to soften the language on using weapons in Ukraine to try to repel Russia. It's really weird to me that that was like his big thing. From there, we can go into like a few more circumstantial things. I don't know. The fact that Trump fired Comey seems really bizarre to me, that they tried to pin that on, what was it, the Hillary email handling or whatever, like kind of reeks of like, why the fuck are we doing this? When you look into the quasi obstruction of justice shit going on, him trying to kind of bully Comey into coming out and saying that he's clear and that he wants people that are faithful and trustworthy, like that kind of shit is really fucking sketchy. His more circumstantial, his constant sucking off of Putin always. He cannot ever bring himself to say a single negative fucking thing about Russia ever, right? I don't know if he's just stupid, right? This is where I get like the 40% time too. Like I kind of fall on the end of maybe he's just really fucking stupid. That's entirely possible. Don't attribute to malice what could be attributed to stupidity, right? I'm sure there are more things too that I'm not even considering. We know that the email stuff and all of that was done on behalf of Russia. That's something that if you trust the intelligence community, you know that that was all done on behalf of Russian agents. You know that you have a lot of strange ties, the stuff going on with Flynn, where Flynn had meetings that were undisclosed to Pence that ultimately caused him to get fired. I feel like there's a lot of stuff there that, and I remember your argument before, well, Destiny, a lot of people in politics, talk to Russian people. I know that was your defense before, but for me, there's a lot of weird shit that makes it a little bit kind of uncomfortable. That's where I stand.
So is there any direct evidence?
Not that I have access to, because I don't have top secret clearance for United States intel.
Right. So I've kind of followed these a little bit. So you have a prior probability of 0.1%, which less than a tenth of a percentage point, which I agree with you there. Very unlikely that without any evidence. So the only evidence you have that would get that 0.1% occurrence to a 40% likely occurrence is one, Manafort has a sketchy history in Ukrainian politics. Two, the interjection of Trump's Russian stuff into the RNC platform. Three, Trump fired Comey. And four, he doesn't say anything bad about Putin. So my claim, and you can agree or disagree with me, but my claim is that you can't arrive at a 30 to 40 or even a 20 or even a 10 or even a 5% probability from that prior with that evidence.
Okay, that's fine. Then we're never going to agree on that. Yeah, that's fine.
So I just want to hear you claim. You think that is enough? You think that is enough evidence?
Yeah, I do. But the way that we arrive at these are, so you're the kind of person. So if let's say that every single day for like 2 weeks in a row, your wife or husband or whatever is coming home late at night and he constantly reeks of perfume of somebody else, and he's not interested in you sexually anymore, right? And you go to somebody, you're like, listen, there's a high chance I think that my husband is cheating. You'd be like, well, a prior, you will have to start at 0.1%. And do you actually have any evidence? Do you have video footage of him actually fucking another person? No. Well, he's only late at work. Well, that doesn't really mean this discrediting of everything that's not like Destiny. Can you show me the document? It's like really absurd.
No, you absolutely could take a Bayesian approach to that problem, and I'll happily walk you through it. So if you're a wife and your husband or your boyfriend or whatever comes home with perfume, you do consider the prior, and say the prior is low. Say it's something like 5%. Maybe you really trust them. And then you have to consider the conditional probability that he smells like perfume. Why would he smell like perfume? There are other possibilities. Maybe he sits very close to a coworker. Maybe he has a sister that sees often who wears a similar perfume. You laugh, but this is the Bayesian approach. You have to consider the conditional probability.
Maybe Trump actually tapped every single campaign manager, and Manafort was the only one he had left to go through. Maybe Flynn accidentally, didn't disclose these meetings to Pence because he forgot. Maybe, I don't know. What's the Bayesian?
No, actually, Nate Silver actually did something very similar to this in The Signal and the Noise. He actually demonstrated the Bayesian approach with finding underwear. So you find you're a woman, you find a pair of panties that aren't your own inside the desk, and he actually goes through the math with reasonable priors and reasonable estimates of probability to show that the probability of cheating was only something like 40% or something.
Nice.
Even with all that evidence.
Okay.
So my point is that if you want take a Bayesian approach, like you seem to like it. You have to.
I never
really
said I liked it. I never said. I just acknowledged what it was. Whatever it is, it sounds.
Well, I mean, you cannot like it, but it's also like it's basically probability and statistics. So you can. It's like kind of like saying you don't like probability and statistics.
Because I guess this is the only approach to analyzing these types of situations. You're telling me this is the only one that if I took a stats class, Bayesian probability would be the only thing that you would ever suggest for analyzing a situation like this.
Yes.
Okay.
That's basic probability. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Definitely.
Okay.
And that's why, because this isn't really an opinionated sort of thing. It's kind of like, and I think the way you're testing this out. It's not an opinion.
Like how likely you weigh these things,
sure.
how important
right,
nanoforce like to the campaign. These aren't opinions. These are objective fact.
So let me give you an example here. Like if a drug test is 99% sensitive and 99% specific, what that means is that if like you take the drug, it has a 99% chance of detecting that you took it. That's how sensitive it is. 99% chance. So it'll produce 99% true positive results. If you do take the drug, and also 99% true negative if you don't take the drug. So it's a very good test. Now suppose that only 0.5% of people are using that drug. What's the probability of that randomly selected individual receiving a positive test and actually being a user? And
it's pretty low. It's like 10% or something, maybe even lower than that. I don't remember. It's something pretty low though.
Yeah, do you know what the prior to this? The prior is 0.5%.
I don't remember the prior, but I've seen the same thought experiment before.
Right, the prior is 0.5%, and the test is 99% sensitive. Even in that case, the probability is 33%. So my point is that if you're getting to 40%, and we started with a lower prior than this hypothetical situation. So we're talking about a drug test that's 99% sensitive and 99% specific. And when it's applied to a prior probability of 0.5%, that only gets to a 33.2% posterior probability. So what that tells me is that you think there's more evidence that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia to release the emails than the power of this drug test we're talking about. That's the math. That's not opinion. That's literally the math. You can laugh, but it doesn't make it less true.
I mean, you got there, dude. You used some numbers and you got there in the end. So.
Yeah, 33.3 repeating, of course.
Repeating, of course. Okay, there you go. Well, you got it, dude. You made it believe. So what is the percentage I'm supposed to believe in?
All it does is highlight the absurdity of the conclusion that there's a 30 to 40.
No, the absurdity is you trying to nail me down on a percentage for what the most unprecedented event in all of United States electoral history, right? Would you agree that even if he ends up being innocent, that this whole chain of events has been almost completely unprecedented? That the amount of absurdity.
Hey, look, that's a good question, because that's the point. If he is as innocent, how do we get here? How come there has been so much media hysteria over this issue? My theory is that there hasn't been media hysteria over this issue because there's substance behind the allegations that Trump or his campaign colluded with Russia. My theory is that there's media hysteria over it because of political reasons, and they're trying to politically damage Trump.
Okay, so what about the political reasons where no Republican even wants to acknowledge that Russian interfered with the election via email releasings?
Wait, I mean, I think probably the reason for that is that interfered with the election is an imprecise term. And
that feels pretty precise. Well, okay, try to influence the results of the election, not hack machines.
Yeah, try to influence the results. I wouldn't say no Republican. I'm pretty sure Republicans have acknowledged that Trump tried to influence
a little
the
bit,
election.
But during any of the hearings, they don't seem to be interested in that ever at all. Usually, we're asking really odd questions about. I think about the leaks is normally what the Republicans focus on, but the Republicans seem to hardcore shy away from any Russian interference. I mean, McCain is the one that I see talking about.
I guess that's kind of the problem, is that if we have such a low prior probability and no evidence, it kind of makes sense to me that.
Wait, we're just talking about Russian interference in the election. I'm not even talking about Trump's team being associated with it.
Right. My point is that the hysteria behind that is driven by those allegations, which aren't very likely. So my point is that they're not being reported because there's a ton of evidence that they happened. I don't think anybody who is pushing that conspiracy theory thinks it actually happened. I think they're all doing it to undermine the Trump administration.
I mean, we don't have to try to undermine the Trump administration. He undermines himself on a daily basis. Why would we need to push?
That doesn't mean it's not a rebuttal at all to what I just said. They're still trying to undermine his administration with the BS made up narrative. And what I think they're doing is they're convincing a lot of people that it's more likely than it actually was. I consider you a pretty reasonable person. But without the media hysteria, I don't think you would have said, oh, I think there's a 30 to 40% chance that Trump's campaign helped Russia hack and release the DNC or the Podesta emails.
I don't know. I mean, most of my
listen. I think you've only gotten to that point because the media's manipulated you. I don't think you've
most
gotten
of my
there
points about Trump come from stories that have been like actual things that have happened, not from like a CNN pundit. Anderson Cooper told me that it happened. Nothing that I cited you was, well, on CNN, Anderson Cooper said there's a really good chance, or the
right.
Rachel Maddow.
I'm not doubting that stuff happened. What I'm doubting is that that's a huge enough weight of evidence to assign a high likelihood of something happening. Yeah, I know,
but that's because you're part of this like 0.001% of people that needs to see like the actual fucking document before you believe that there's even a slight chance that it could actually happen.
Nope, that's not true at all. I would absolutely adjust my evidence if I saw, and nobody. Here's the thing: nobody's even claiming there's direct evidence. Well, I think Chuck Schumer or somebody said one time, we finally have like more than circumstantial evidence, but then he walked it back immediately. So we're in a reality, Destiny, where nobody's even pretending like there's direct evidence that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia.
Okay, there could be, but if it exists in the IC, we don't have it.
Hey, listen to me. I agree with you that there could be. There is a probability. My point is if they were saying we have direct evidence, we just can't show it now. If that were leaked, if people were suggesting that, I would adjust. That would be more evidence. I would absolutely adjust my belief about the likelihood of it happening. But as of right now, nobody is even claiming there's direct evidence. So how you get from such a near impossible prior to a 30 to 40% likelihood, I think you've gotten there through media manipulation, not through evidence, not through logical thinking. And I do think you're even more on the more reasonable side than a lot of people.
Okay, so let's back up a little bit to your post before we got off into this extremely autistic tangent about priori knowledge or whatever.
But it's not, dude. It's not. No.
Sorry, no, it is because you're trying to nail me down on this 40% figure when I could have just as easily said 20 or 10. I have no fucking idea what the percentage is. You're like hyper obsessed with a number that I've never spoken before talking to you today.
Let me lay this out to you. It's kind of like if you have like a belief, a logical belief, and I ask you to kind of explain your premise and then how you logically arrive at your conclusion. That's literally what we're doing with math, with Bayesian inference. That's why I do it, because I'm basically asking you how you got at that.
Chance that
Okay, but if you wanted to do this, if you weren't being so disingenuous about this and you really wanted to do it, whether or not we start with a 5% likelihood of Trump colluding or a 1 out of 1,000 one would be really important. And we never stopped to discuss that, did
right.
we? But you didn't even stop to consider that, firstly. Secondly, we would also have to consider every single individual event I bought and how likely that is to increase the likelihood of...
We didn't discuss the prior because we were in agreement with it. That's why I said I agree.
Well, no, not really. Well, no, because now you're coming out like, well, listen, Destiny, if you look at the exact mathematical formula, you can see that you're being very unreasonable. When before I was always giving you like approximately, I don't know, is it 1 out of 1,000? Well, I don't know. We could have a 2-hour discussion on what our a priority percentage would be here of Trump having colluded with Russia, right? Maybe that number starts at like 10% with me. Maybe him making statements on the TV where he's saying shit like, Russia, if you've got the emails, you should release him. I'd be really happy to see him. And then lying about his relationships with Trump when he's been on record saying that he's gotten presents from him and really likes him. Maybe that kind of stuff bumps that a prior for me up to 10%, which makes it not as hard for me to get to the 40%. Now, I don't really give a fuck about any of this, but it irritates me that you're trying to nail me to the wall on this mathematically precise number that you claim has mathematical backing to it, and you didn't even really bother to walk through any of the math. You just were happy to take a bunch of my really lowballed assumptions for the sake of an argument and then try to crucify me with a number that was total bullshit.
I mean, again, I agreed with your prior assessment. I think anybody would agree with the prior that's low. I mean, if you said that the prior was 10%, I would ask you how your beliefs on anything are justified. If your prior floats from 0.1% to 10%,
because I'm not really thinking about it. Because this is I don't know.
Well, then you're insulting me. Then why are you thinking about it? I'm asking you, why aren't you thinking about it?
Because I don't know, because I don't really consider it relevant to any of this at all. Because I don't think that my personal thoughts, because I have no influence on the outcome of the FBI investigation.
Yeah,
I don't
neither
know.
do I.
So why do I care if I think it's like a 10% or 30% or 40%? I don't know. I just think in terms of like anything could fucking happen. Dude, tomorrow a story could break that could make either one of us look totally fucking retarded, right? Tomorrow the FBI could announce that they did a RICO investigation and the entire fucking GOP has been caught and they're all fucked. Or they could announce we cleared every single member of Trump's committee and nothing was found. Like, I don't fucking know. Anything could happen in a day.
If new evidence comes out, then we adjust our estimate of likelihood. That's how I'm not asking you for precise numbers. All I'm asking you to do is to justify your assessment.
But then you're also asking me these are really intangible. Okay. I don't inherently know the difference between a 1/100% of a chance or 1% chance. That's not something that I intuitively know.
Exactly. And what's actually cool is that that's actually not massively important. It's important, but
a prior. When you talk about
listen to me. A prior is important, but you can just kind of guess a prior, estimate it, what's really important is the weight of the evidence and adjusting the prior.
But that's not true,
really
because
important.
if your prior starts off at 5 or 10%, you need far less evidence to get to 30 or 40 than if your prior starts off at 1/100th of a percent.
You do, but you still need a lot of evidence, of which I don't think there is any. There's not even, nobody's even pretending there's direct evidence yet.
No, it's all circumstantial at this point.
Even if you start with a low prior, there is no way you get to such a high likelihood.
In your opinion, there's
no direct evidence. Not even in my opinion. I mean, like,
yes, because you think that you need 100% direct evidence to get any significant boost at all. Whereas I would look at something like the firing of Comey as being an insanely fucking stupid thing to do, and it reeks of guilt.
The problem is if they're actually, and I guess so. Here's where I would be with that. If you actually do think there's a 40% probability that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia, there would already be probable cause for arrests.
You don't know what? Stop. You don't know that?
Not if the FBI had evidence that placed their likelihood of committing that crime at 40%, then yes, that would be approaching probable cause.
It doesn't matter though, because if they're doing a much larger investigation, they're not going to start doing arrests now. That would be fucking retarded.
I agree with you, but it would still be. My point is that you're already
wait. What's the point? It could be 40%, and they just aren't making arrests because it's part of an ongoing investigation, and they don't want to jeopardize larger targets. So no, that point had no.
You're missing my point. Hold on, let me look at this real quick. Actually, my point is that you're saying it's about 40% likely. My point is that
I don't know if it's 40%.
These would hate this guy.
Okay, well, 30%, 20%. That's what you said when I asked you. But
I don't know, because I don't really think, like, if you were to ask me, like, what is the percentage that your kid grows up to be, like, in STEM? Like, I don't know. I have no, like, I could, like, if you ask me one day, I might say 80%, and another day I might say 20%.
If you wanted to make that estimate, you know what the best way to do it would be?
Yeah, what?
It would be to do it with Bayesian inference. Use a prior, say, well, what percentage of kids go into it? And then say, well, I work in STEM, so that, given that, then you start with prior and you have the evidence. When I do that, it's not the mathematics, it's the reasoning part. Is you have like a posterior probability. What I'm really interested in is the prior and the evidence. Those two things are what are supposed to justify your assessment of how likely it is that Trump's team colluded with Russia. So I don't see where the evidence is that Trump's team colluded with Russia to release the emails. Given that's my whole point.
Let's go through some things then, okay? If you want to really do the Bayesian memes, okay? We're going to go through a couple things. Why would Trump's campaign choose Manafort, of all people, to be the manager of the campaign?
So I don't know much about Manafort.
Okay, then move on to the next thing. So you already admitted that there's a huge piece of the puzzle that you don't even have no fucking idea about, but you're still really confident to say that my estimation of Trump's party members having colluded with Russia is really fucking wrong.
Wait, let me explain to you. The Bayesian approach actually is to say, given that Trump's team did collude with Russia, what's the probability that they would have appointed Bannon?
I have no idea.
Right, that's the problem.
Wait, what?
Is that
what does Bannon have to do with Russia? Bannon was the fucking Breitbart stooge.
Or sorry, no, not Steve Bannon, Manafort. I'm saying if Trump's team is colluding with Russia, given that assume they are, what's the probability that they would have hired Manafort?
What if Manafort was the only one colluding with Russia and he brought on more people afterwards?
Yeah, so that's kind of begs the same question. Is that when you consider the evidence, you have to consider it in the conditional probability of it actually happening. So let me give you another example. So people talked about Jared Kushner trying to set up a back channel with Russia, right? Okay. So you might say, oh, that's evidence that Trump's team's trying to collude with Russia. But really, it's like, really actually is it? Because if you look at the conditional probability, if you assume that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia to release those emails or what have you, then what's the probability that Jared Kushner would be trying to set up a back channel with Russia? And when was this? January, February? I don't even know. And a lot of people would just kind of say, oh, like 100%. But really, no, it's actually not 100%. Because it actually makes what would you think?
I don't know. I wouldn't say 100%. I don't know.
Oh,
there are
like
a lot of
90%.
If he's trying to set up back channels with Russia, what are I don't know. What else would he be setting up back channels with Russia for? Maybe he does some good business, or maybe there are other things involved. I'm not sure.
All right, good. Yeah, those are the questions you should be asking, and I'll give you some. I'll give you some starting points. It's like, well, I'm pretty sure it's fairly standard operating procedure to set up back channels with foreign countries. So is it really that unusual? Two, this back channel was set up in January after the election. If there were collusion, then it seems less likely that a back channel would be reached out by Jared Kushner now. So you see, when you consider these things, that piece of evidence that Jared Kushner tried to set up with back
Where
channels
this
with
is
Russia.
like mental Olympics tier. So now it's like,
not,
well,
it's
listen,
not
if they were
mental Olympics
actually
at all.
colluding, they wouldn't do this because it makes it look like it's really obvious that they're colluding. So they would never do this to show they're colluding. Like,
no, it makes sense. If why would he be setting up a back channel with Russia if they already had one? That's what the question you need to ask in order to justify your assessment of that evidence. That's not being a meme.
Maybe because he's relatively new to the fucking game. I don't know. Maybe because other people were in charge of those communications. Maybe because he hasn't been personally involved in those. I don't know. There's a million fucking reasons why. I don't know, but this is why I don't really like you're focused.
Exactly,
I don't care about this number. This is the thing. You're like hyper fucking focused on this number that I don't give a fuck about.
Look,
I just read the stories. I'm interested in the story. But it is though, because the 40% is really important.
Hey, listen to me say it's not even a number. It's the idea is that you have evidence and you have to assess the conditional probability of seeing that evidence.
But you don't. I don't have to contest any additional probability.
Okay,
I can just sit here and
then your assessment isn't justified if you don't do
That's
that.
why I don't publicly make one. That's why I don't say, hey guys, I just let you know I'm adjusting. I didn't. I don't. I don't say like today is the destiny, the threat level Trump assessment is up to 42% today, guys. I did another analysis on the evidence. Like I'm not in the business of that.
Can I just ask you one more time? Do you still maintain that it's fairly likely that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia to release the Podesta and
I personally
emails?
believe that, yeah, but I'm not going to sit here and like publicly push that number because I'm not comfortable doing it.
Let me ask you, so do you believe that number is justified by the evidence and by the prior likelihood?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, then you have publicly claimed it.
No, but I love you, buddy.
I don't know, man. It just seems like we're at a bit of an impasse. I guess what it reminds me of too is it kind of reminds me of the Pizzagate people, right? Because I think they do that same treatment of evidence.
No, they don't.
Hey, wait. Let me finish. Let me finish my claim. So Pizzagate people, what they do is they put together a whole bunch of circumstantial shit. Like, okay, yeah, that Comet Pizza guy, maybe he's really creepy. He has a bunch of creepy stuff. They don't consider anything else. They just say, oh, well, like, here's a huge accusation of Pizzagate, and look at all this creepy stuff that Podesta and his brother is. Yeah, exactly. They don't ask what's the percent. All they do is say, screw the percent. Look at what this little picture is on this pizza thing, and look at when this girl disappeared at that certain time. They don't ask any of that. They don't do any of that. They do basically what you're doing. They just list off the circumstantial shit and the innuendo. They admit they don't have any direct evidence, but they feel like the probability is very high. It's the same thing. I'm not asking you to be exact in your percentages and your estimates. All I'm asking you is justify it with the evidence. And the four things you've given me, which I'll say again, are Manafort, his sketchy history in Ukrainian politics, the interjection of the RNC platform, the firing the Comey, and the fact he doesn't say anything bad about Putin, which isn't. That's honestly that's not evidence.
Did Flynn get thrown into there and him not disclosing Russian meetings and then getting fired from the campaign? Did we bring that up? Does that get counted in my thing? I'm sure there's more too. I mean, there's been so many fucking stories. Where's Mike's spam? The Kushner secret channel thing is another thing to consider. Tillerson's connections with Russia, the fact that Tillerson penned $300 billion worth of oil deals that have been locked by sanctions, that now he's in charge of the State Department or whatever. I mean, like, I don't know. There's a ton of like little random fucking things.
An expert Pizzagate conspiracy theorist, of which I am not, could list out an equally impressive list of weird stuff and weird occurrences. I agree.
I actually didn't really consider this, that all circumstantial evidence is equally probable. I never really considered that before, but thank you. Without direct hard evidence, every single piece of circumstantial evidence is actually is equally probable.
I feel like I'm the one asking you to assess the probability of the evidence, and I feel like that's what's not happening. But I feel like it's kind of the same. Like I said, I see a parallel here. I don't think all circumstantial evidence is equally probable at all, and I think you try to assess the validity of the circumstantial evidence.
I literally say every day.
Was an example of when I
wonder what's going to happen when the FBI finishes their investigation. That's what I'm most interested in, because I can see it going either way.
I'm still going to say that there's a fairly high probability that Trump's team committed the greatest.
Except I don't say that. I'm giving you that number now because you're pressing me on it, but that's not generally what I talk about, because I'm not really interested in making those guesses.
Okay, look, I'm not critiquing you for what you're saying. I'm critiquing you for what you're believing. If you believe it's a fairly high, I don't think that's justified. I think it's conspiracy theorist territory.
Okay,
if you
then
think
maybe I'm
high.
secretly a conspiracy theorist, but at least you can commend me on my responsibility to not spread my conspiracy theory to my fan base, okay?
My whole problem is I don't think you're a conspiracy theorist for everything. I think the media manipulation has inflated that number for you. I think that's my whole entire point. That's why I likened it to 1984, because I think without the media hysteria, I don't think everybody would be walking around thinking there was a fairly high probability that Trump's team colluded with Russia to release those emails, because there's no evidence of it. And yet even in the absence of evidence and the absence of anyone pretending there's direct evidence, we still have people like you who I don't consider conspiracy theorists in general. You still believe it's fairly highly certain that they did that. And that blows my mind. That's why I think 1984, because people like you are led to believe
by the media
it's a fairly high probability
with
no direct evidence. You believe that with no direct evidence. And that's just surprising to me. And that's why going back all the way back to my original comment, that's really what motivated it. I feel like it's 1984 territory.
So going all the way back to your original comment, what was blown out of the water again? The fact that Trump wasn't under investigation, which nobody has been talking about? That's the thing that was blown out of the water, right?
See, I guess it's funny you mentioned 1984 because Trump being under investigation was absolutely discussed and speculated prior to these occurrences.
By people on Twitter?
So now that no, in articles too, and now that it's been confirmed it hasn't, all of a sudden, nobody thought that they were. And you know what? Let me tell you this: the exact same thing's going to happen when Trump's team is cleared of colluding with WikiLeaks or whatever. People like you are going to say, "Oh, nobody was actually pretending like that was actually going to happen."
No, not that Trump was colluding with WikiLeaks. No, but Trump's party, people in his campaign. Yeah, sure. If it comes out, listen. You can mark my words right now because this is reality. Because now we're talking reality. Okay, you can mark my words now that if it comes out that if Trump's party is cleared 100%, that the FBI and CIA and NSA and all this shit come out and they release a joint statement like we have concluded that everybody involved in Trump's campaign had absolutely nothing to do with any type of collusion with Russian people. That would be a bombshell.
They might not even do that if there's no evidence for them to do that. Then there's no even investigation that's taking them down that lane. They're not going to close that lane and give some sort of statement like that.
Well, once the FBI, no,
it's a negative. It's a negative. You're basically
you mean kind of like Comey gave on Hillary's emails, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? Come on, people do this. What do you mean?
What are you talking about?
Comey came out and gave a negative on Hillary's emails. He said that she.
Oh, please, dude.
This is why he was fired. What do you mean? Of course he did.
All right. So listen to me, Destiny. They were investigating Hillary Clinton because she did mishandle classified information. That's not even under dispute. She absolutely did, and they investigated it. We don't know if Trump's team colluded with Russia, and there's no evidence
hold on. But Comey came out and he gave a negative. He said that they do not recommend charges because they do not believe that intent existed there. Comey came out and if we can't agree on this, we're never going to agree on anything. Comey gave a negative that there was nothing that was illegal that he believed, in his opinion, happened with Hillary's email shit.
Okay, but that investigation was motivated by probable cause that a crime did take place.
That doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Yes, it does, because my point is that if there is no evidence that starts an investigation with probable cause for that, then there's going to be no conclusion to that investigation and no grand statement that's going to clear everybody because there is no such investigation.
So you think right now that it is politically likely that the FBI will finish their investigation and we're going to hear nothing about it? That like 2 years from now, people are going to be like, what's going on? And then like there's going to be a leak where it's like, by the way, the FBI finished their investigation 18 months ago and nobody said anything?
I think it's very likely that they won't come out and say, we investigated thoroughly and none of Trump's team had anything to do with Russian leaks and emails. I
totally disagree. I guess we'll see what happens, but I totally disagree.
It's not even clear if that's even like.
No, but what will happen is once the investigation,
they're not going to announce an absence of an investigation.
Once the investigation finishes, this is probably being investigated, dog. Come on, it's like one of the central questions was the connection that Trump's team had with the email leaks. So this is probably
being investigated. Then they're not going to come out and say that.
Okay, I guess you're right. If there's no investigation about anything, then nothing is ever going to be said about anything ever because the a priori knowledge is 0.1%, and we don't know if there are subpoenas written for these exact things, and we don't know. Okay.
No, my only point is that when the time goes on, people are going to look back and they're going to say, oh, nobody was accusing Trump over his campaign.
Well, you can mark my words down here, and you can go through all my VODs, that Trump's team, that is a central question, is whether Trump's team was working with the email shit or not. Trump personally being under investigation has never been part of any major narrative, except for you, I guess, for the people that you read on Twitter or whatever crazy people on the left you think represent mainstream media today. Has never been
CNN,
a central...
CNN just had to retract a story last week that was this entire Russia conspiracy theory.
That Trump personally was under investigation?
No, actually.
Okay, so that's not what we're talking about.
The same line of stuff. No, we're talking about his team as well, and that's exactly the line that you're the one that's talking about. Just Trump. We're talking about his team. Well, CNN.
No, that's what you're talking about. When you said stuff has been blown out of the water, you said except Comey directly verifying that Trump was not under investigation. That is not his team. You said Comey directly verifying that Trump was not under investigation, not his team.
So what's your point?
That nobody has been reporting this story, that Trump personally has been under investigation, that it's generally been about people in his team.
again,
and then somehow you're conflating this with like
speculation that Trump is under investigation.
Okay, yeah, from people on Twitter, sure,
not even among Twitter or whatever.
Maybe
but
like pundits and shit, but stories and shit coming out haven't been leaking. Like, there's been a big leak that Trump is personally under investigation. Blah blah blah. These haven't been the stories that have been dominating the media.
Was it Feinstein that said that there is now more than non-circumstantial evidence, and then walked that back? So if Senator Feinstein,
no, it wasn't Feinstein. It was another guy, Rickman. I don't remember what the guy's name was, but I don't think he even walked it back. But I don't think that was about Trump. I thought that was still about Trump's people and Trump's party. Who was the guy that said this?
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, I remember hearing that. I remember thinking, wow, that's pretty interesting.
Stop saying that's what we're talking about. That's not what we're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. You're saying that people specifically said that Trump was under investigation. Stop trying to change what you brought, what you made this about. No. Don't make us look. You specifically said that it was about Trump. It has not been about Trump. It's been about. Why are you saying no? I've got your post right in front of me.
I'm trying to get a word in to say no. From the beginning, I've said Trump or his campaign. I've said that from the beginning. You can pretend like I'm just saying Trump, but yes, the fact that Trump isn't under investigation is good evidence that there isn't a grand conspiracy within his campaign. Because if his campaign were being investigated for probable cause, then it's likely that his are you being cuxed right now?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I don't even think chat can hear us right now, so we can.
No, they can hear us. It's on audio. Don't worry, buddy.
Oh, shit. Okay. All right. I lost my train of thought. Anyway,
your post makes it look like Trump being announced that he is not under investigation was a really big deal, which makes it sound like you're saying Trump personally being under investigation.
Did you not think it was a big deal?
No, I don't think that's ever been part of any of the stories. I don't think that's ever been what I've considered. Trump being announced that he would be under investigation, that would be a massive deal, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that Trump is personally under investigation.
I mean, nobody said it outright, but it's been speculated, and there was a lot of innuendo that suggested it.
Sure, there's been speculation, but we don't know one way or another, but there's never been...
Exactly. So that's my point, is that if you see
No, that's not a point. Nothing has been blown out of the water because some speculation turns out to not be true. That doesn't mean anything is blown out of the water. Firstly, it's not even guaranteed that Trump won't come under investigation. Secondly, the stories have not been about Trump personally being under investigation. It's been about people in his party being under investigation.
Right. So then you have to go further. What's the likelihood of his campaign being under his investigation and not him? That's also...
It could totally happen.
You're right. It could happen, but what's the probability of that actually happened? It's not 100%.
I don't know, because I haven't done the Bayesian analysis on it yet.
You're not even considering it.
Because for me to start speculating on that would be for me to try to speculate the probability of alien life existing in the universe. There are variables that I can't possibly consider. I have the FBI investigation right now could literally involve 2 people, or it could involve the better half of the entire GOP. I have no fucking idea, and to even try to speculate on that would be fucking absurd. That's why I have said over and over again to wait for the FBI investigation.
I guess that's why I can't reconcile with what you just said with you maintaining that it's fairly likely that Trump's in collude with Russia. You believe one or the other. You cannot believe both. Pick one.
You cannot hold both at the same time. Because you're you're conflating 2 totally different things. On the percentage of Trump's team being investigated, that's a different question than what are the chances that Trump's team is under investigation but Trump himself isn't under investigation. Those are 2 totally separate questions.
They're 2 separate questions, but both come down to you're saying I can't even begin to estimate the probability of that and that. So it's like you're saying I can't even begin to look at to assign probability to the actual
because
stuff
one
happening.
Of them is.
But at the same time, you say, oh no, it's fairly likely that Trump and his campaign colluded with Russia. But I can't even begin to talk about the probability of that. Because that's where it shows that you're not justified.
Because there's a million more things that could happen with. Maybe Trump was already investigated and cleared. That's possible. Maybe Trump is part of investigations, but only as a side, only as like an unmasked character, only as somebody that's had relations with these people, but isn't directly being investigated. Maybe they're still building up a case so that they can have something good to take to a fucking FISA court or whatever in order to get a good warrant on Trump, in order to tap the right sources.
I'm confused about where you're going. What's your point?
My point is that when somebody says Trump isn't under investigation, that could mean 15 different things. And I just went through the possibility, some of the things that could mean.
Sure.
But for me to jump and say, well, if Trump's not under investigation, then there must be an incredibly high likelihood that nobody in his party is under investigation. That's like a tremendous leap of logic.
Yeah, and like I said, you can pretend like nobody was speculating or hoping that an investigation of Trump would be confirmed. I mean, I live in an area where they were opening bars so that people could come and watch. People were expecting bombshells. You can pretend like they weren't now.
Bombshells from what?
From the Comey testimony. Do you remember CNN had that fucking countdown bars, people were skipping work to go watch this. Everybody wanted a bombshell. And then now that it didn't happen, everybody's like, oh, no, we weren't expecting anything. Like,
no, you're totally wrong. You're just like, you've never been more wrong in your life.
Okay, man.
The leading up to the Comey testimony, what we were waiting for was obstruction of justice memery. That's what was going on. Comey released all of his testimony the day before. I don't think anybody,
dude,
if I was watching CNN.
Read my post.
What?
Now that Trump isn't under investigation, it's all, oh no, all we care about is obstruction. That's
I like how you're like, oh, well, I can only be one thing at a time. See, now you're just pivoting to something different. Firstly,
yes, you are pivoting to something different. Right. Exactly.
Okay. It's not, though. It's because it's a new issue that's brought up, but it works, I guess, really well on fucking retards like you. As long as you keep bringing up more and more issues, you can constantly say, oh, well, look, now you're just trying to bring up another thing. Now you're trying to bring up another thing.
Oh, about obstruction. We didn't care
about another thing. No, who said we dropped the Trump investigation, the Trump team investigation? That's still an ongoing thing. There's a committee in the Senate, there's a committee in the House, there's a special investigator, and there's a fucking FBI investigation, and possibly NSA and CIA work on it too. So no, all of that is still going on. Just because an obstruction of justice thing has been brought up now doesn't mean we forgot about all of that and we're pivoting.
Hey, let me finish. I hope you can understand the spirit of my comment when I said before there was a ton of speculation about Trump being investigated, about Trump collusion with Russia. And then all of a sudden, everybody thought Comey would be a bombshell. Then after that, it's all of a sudden, oh no, all we care about is obstruction. That's all we care about. And
but that was the bombshell we were waiting for. He released his testimony the day before, dude.
Right.
That's what we were waiting to listen for. It was about obstruction of justice.
Right. And my point is that Comey verified that Trump wasn't under investigation, and from that point on,
we already knew he wasn't under investigation. No one has been saying that.
After he released the memos, you knew. But until then, people thought Trump was lying when he said that he was told 3 times. But did you think Trump was telling the truth when he said he was told by Comey that he was not under investigation?
I don't know, but that's never been a central question about all of this stuff going on.
After Comey pre-released his testimony, that was when the narrative switched from collusion to, oh no, all we care about is obstruction of justice.
Oh, so you're telling me nobody in the media now.
Be something else.
So if I start looking in the media news, nobody's going to be reporting on Trump party members, including with Russia. That's all in the past now because Trump himself has been personally cleared of investigation.
Now you're going to see that a lot less because, like I said, it's the narrative has shifted officially. Okay. The official narrative has shifted. There's not as much talk about the collusion shit anymore because it's so unlikely, and they needed to dig out of the hole that they dug themselves because it didn't happen. Let's be honest. Like I said, I assign probably less than 1% probability it happened. It didn't happen, despite the media trying to convince you it did. So since it didn't happen, what the media has to do is they have to move on to something else. It's going to be obstruction. And that's going to be claiming what you all cared about all along. You didn't care at all about the collusion. Even now you say it's fairly highly likely that Trump's campaign colluded with Russia. But when that goes on, you're not going to say, I wonder why I thought it was fairly likely, given that there was no evidence. You're not going to do that. You're going to say,
how do you know? I absolutely will if nothing comes of it. But if nothing comes of it, then I'll
doing it right now with the collusion theory and pretending like it's all about obstruction of justice now. When it was all about the collusion before that, and now all of a sudden that the collusion is less likely because the investigation doesn't seem to be publicly unfolding the same way.
Yep.
It's all of a sudden
this is the same thing as your Muslim argument too, right? When we had the big argument on the Muslim ban, where like every single fucking circuit agreed 100% with the exact rationale I used, and you said that it wasn't right. What if it ends up like that?
Have you been sleeping this week? Did you really not see the Supreme Court decision this week?
No, what was the Supreme Court decision this week?
Are you shitting me, dude? Oh my God.
Which one was it?
The Supreme Court reinstated the travel ban. They overturned the reasoning of the lower courts, exactly like I thought they would.
Oh, shit. Okay, well, I guess we'll see how it turns out.
Not only, and it wasn't just the conservative justices, even the liberal ones like Ginsburg, it wasn't a decision. That's correct. It wasn't a decision. But what they did was they lifted.
It's not a decision. So Supreme Court allows limited version of Trump's travel ban to take effect and will consider the case in fall.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty fucking far from what you just said. That's if I were to do a Bayesian analysis on how on the chasm that exists between the reality of the situation and what you opened that with, holy shit, I don't think fucking Naruto could jump that fucking gap.
All right, hey, my point is that they overturned the lower court's rulings. So it's kind of funny that you say the lower courts all agreed with you when I was like, wait for the higher court, and the higher court basically said the lower courts got it wrong. You're right, they have to make the decision, but it doesn't bode well that even the liberal justices supported overturning the reasoning of the lower courts. So you were wrong to just say the lower courts were wrong, and my speculation was right, that the ninth courts, they gave the reasoning based off their large judicial discretion. It wasn't on sound legal reasoning, and it got overruled in the Supreme Court. And
I guess we'll see what the Supreme Court decision.
Yes, we'll see what the decision will be. But I want to note that the lower courts already have been basically overturned. So
maybe the Supreme Court just wants to hear the case.
Oh, they do want to. They do want to hear the case, and a lot of people thought they wouldn't even want to hear the case; that they would accept the lower court's rulings. So the fact that they rejected the lower court's rulings and reinstated partially, it actually leans more evidence to what I'm saying. But again, I'm going to say I don't support the travel ban, but at the same time, it's a freaking fact of the matter that in the Constitution, in the law, the executive has a lot of latitude in dealing with immigration. You can't just wish that away. The lower courts tried to wish it away, but the Supreme Court, even
the lower courts didn't try to wish it away. The lower courts upheld that we can't discriminate based on religion. That was like one of the big points.
And SCOTUS said bullshit. We're going to review it in the fall. But
SCOTUS said bullshit. You can't discriminate on religion, or bullshit. We don't like your reasoning.
They said bullshit. The lower court's reasoning was wrong.
There you go. So we do have restrictions on how we're allowed to limit immigration. Even the executive branch cannot tell, like, I don't want Christians or Muslims in the country.
I mean, of course, there are some restrictions, but extremely broad latitude. That is in common law, in written law. There's extremely broad
Fun fact,
deference they have.
This guy butchers Bayesian
and Supreme Court affirmed
theory.
that. That's been my point all along, is that they have broad deference, and SCOTUS seem to agree with me. After all, I'm surprised.
Well, we don't know that yet because they haven't made a decision. They just said they're going to hear the case. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But
it was unanimous in support of either partially or fully implementing. There was actually 3 dissenters, but the 3 dissenters wanted to fully reinstate the ban immediately. So all of them were in favor of overturning, the injunction of the lower courts. So that's not a good leg to stand on there.
All right. Well, we'll see what happens, I guess. All right, buddy.
Wait, do you see what happened in the Seattle minimum wage?
No. What about
you don't support minimum wage, do you?
No, I don't. I think it's really stupid.
Okay. Well, it's not gonna be
every single study that people always throw me at. If you look into the states, it's always like the federal minimum wage is $7.15 an hour, and the states raise the wage to like $7.28 an hour, and then there are no bad effects, and people are like, "Well, this is proof that minimum wage works."
Yeah, there's a pretty big University of Washington study out, and it is actually significant because they were actually hired by Seattle basically to study it, and they estimated something like an average and $125 per month reduction in wages for the low wage workers, and hours being cut, and something like 5,000 lost jobs in the first several months, and it's being widely regarded as the canary in the coal mine for the whole minimum wage movement. So we'll see what happens there. Keep an eye on that. That's another interesting one.
What is the Seattle minimum wage already? What did it go to, and what is it now?
They voted to raise it to $15. Right now it's at $15. Right now it's at $13.50, and they've only studied the first, something.
See, people always look at these little bits here, but the people that are talking for like a $15 an hour minimum wage, like I sincerely wonder how you think a state that pays $8 an hour to workers is going to pay them $15 an hour. Like those are the cases that I'm really interested in. Like
it's insanity. And that's in Seattle, which has an extremely high cost of living. When that goes to the counties with lower average incomes, it's going to be, if it does, it's going to be devastating. Because like you said, going from $7.25 to $7.28 isn't going to cause a huge shitstorm. So that's why I hate people who support minimum wage say, "Oh well, we raise minimum wage
that are already like really close to the federal."
Exactly. Rate. We raised minimum wage like 3 cents during a period of economic growth, and we didn't see a statistically significant reduction. It's like, yeah, of course, it doesn't mean any of the theory is wrong, but. Anyway, keep an eye out on that.
Yep, I'll be watching that out of the corner of my eye, but I'm going to be focused on this Russia shit, okay? I'm going to fucking grill you. If I find out that Trump was working with those people,
ping me when you downgrade your outlook from fairly likely to somewhat likely.
Okay, and I'll ping you if I go from fairly likely to highly likely, okay? With high confidence, okay,
absolutely.
We'll get there.
Okay?
Okay. But I'm going to repeat the same thing that I've said on this stream a million fucking times before. That the main thing I'm interested about, and I think speculating is stupid until we see the FBI's conclusion of their investigation. I don't even put stock in the Senate or House intel bullshit investigation. I just want to see the FBI's investigation. That's the position that I've always taken, because literally, and even you admit this, right? Anything is fucking possible, right? And to even try to guess is really fucking hard because of how bizarre everything has been, right?
I agree with you. Nothing is impossible, but not everything is probable. I guess that's where I am.
Well, technically, probable just means it's not impossible. So you would be incorrect in saying not everything is probable, because everything is probable. I'm sorry, I had to JF.
You got me there.
I had to JF you there. I'm sorry.
I lost this debate.
Okay, no, it's okay. Listen, I love you, but I also hate you. Okay, stay safe.
Okay, stay safe.
I love you.
All right, apologize to Arison for me. I tried to get you to play another game. Okay, bye.
I'm going. Bye. This person seemed to be assuming your intent, Destiny. It's as though he doesn't believe you'll admit to being wrong about Trump. I'll read this after. You'll admit to being wrong about Trump if your conclusions are confuted with logic and evidence, and believes your disdain for Trump engulfs you in illogic. Yeah, I agree. That's a really annoying part, and I should have brought that up before. And it's annoying because he told me, because he's saying that, like, if Trump ends up being innocent, that I'm going to, like, shift my thing. If Trump's party, and I'll say it now, and you can quote me fucking a year from now, if Trump's party, like, all of his people end up being cleared as, like, innocent, I would be shocked. It would surprise me. I genuinely wouldn't be expecting it. It would shock me. And I'm not going to, in the future, I'm not going to go, oh, yeah, well, yeah, it was probably pretty likely. I'm not going to say that. I would never say that. I will stand behind what I said before on 2 other occasions where I've done this. It shocked me that Trump won the election. That was shocking to me. I didn't expect that to happen. I didn't see it coming. Now, the polls were close, but I didn't see it coming. Definitely not at all. That shocked me. I also didn't see Hillary being completely cleared and no charges being recommended against her and her email thing. That shocked me as well. Even watching Comey giving his speech up until the very end, when Comey said, I do not recommend charges, I thought he was going to recommend them. That shocked me as well. So when things happen that completely betray my expectation, I'll admit it. If I totally didn't see something coming, I didn't see Hillary being cleared of the email shit, even through Comey talking about it, and I didn't really see Trump winning the election. These are 2 things that shocked me, and I'll admit it now, but I mean, shit came out and it shocked. If Trump's party gets cleared completely of any connection, yeah, sure, I'll admit that too. That would shock me. This idea that, it's funny that he would even consider that I could refocus my narrative, because I can't get away with saying a single fucking thing on my stream without it being quoted and thrown back at me, like, infinitely until all of time. Like, everything I say gets recorded and everything, and everybody remembers every fucking misstep I've ever made. So, like, the idea that I'm gonna, like, shift and refocus and pretend that I didn't believe that there was a decent chance that somebody in Trump's party would get dinged on collusion, nah. I would even go as far as to say right now, would I be shocked if no formal charges were brought against Flynn? I would have to think about it, but that's something that I like had leaned towards, like, the probably. But